So welcome, Gavin.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm also good. Glad to be here. Nice to wake up on a Monday morning and come straight onto a podcast with you. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. Oh, gee, you're sleeping in. Whereabouts are you located?
I'm in Sydney.
Oh, yeah. So we're on the same time zone. So,
We
yeah.
are. Yeah, where are you? You're in, where are you?
Oh, I'm in Gippsland, but I'm on Melbourne time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, in
Yes.
Victoria. Yeah, yeah. So we're both awake. That's a great thing. Um,
Just,
Gavin, you've done some amazing, well, done and still doing some amazing stuff, and I can't wait to. I want to dig deep into it, but before I do, I'm just going to just highlight the things you're doing and then sort of unpack it bit by bit. You're the co-founder of Upschool, which is a platform that empowers students to learn entrepreneurship and have impact. You've got 20 years as a Montessori-trained teacher. You've taught in multiple countries. You're a Montessori Australian ambassador, a TEDx speaker. You have been one of the top 10 most influential global educators for a number of years. Oh my God, you're making me worn out. And let alone the fact that you've built 9 schools, several libraries, and run 3 teacher training centers in Nepal. Holy hell, that is one hell of a list.
sounds tiring when you say it out loud like that.
It does. Uh, wow, I want to unpack all of that. That is just amazing. It's
Do that.
yeah.
Yeah. See how it goes.
Well, I guess the first thing is starting with Upschool because that's a platform that you use, and I'm not sure what like tell us more about the platform and how it works, but or just tell us about Upschool. What is it? Why did you start it? How does it work?
Okay. So it's interesting because I've been a teacher 25 years, 26 years now, right? After I never really left school. I went to school, I went to university, I became a teacher, went straight back to school again, and just been in the washing machine for my.
Yeah,
And so I've had a good chance to have a look around and see, what education looks like in different parts of the world. I've worked in Muslim schools, I've worked in Christian schools, worked in Catholic schools, I've worked in Spain, I've worked in Korea, I've worked in Australia, I've worked all over the place.
wow,
So I've
wow,
seen, what works, what doesn't work, and what's good, and what seems to get children enthusiastic about wanting to run to school
yeah,
and not wanting to leave at the end of the day. And
yeah,
so myself and my co-founder, Richard Mills, who's down your way, actually lives down in Melbourne.
yeah,
In 2021, in the middle of COVID, we started talking about, I was a school principal over here in Sydney, and he was working down there in Melbourne. We started talking about, education and what works and what doesn't work and what get kids ticking. And I was running my own school at the time. So I had, a few hundred kids,
yeah,
400 or 500 kids in one school. And I was able to really just push the limits of what we were able to do in that school and test things
mhm,
out, like
yeah,
what works and what doesn't work. I had a community that was very supportive. I had a lot of students who were very confident and independent because Montessori is all about independence.
yeah,
So we started to just test things out with the kids and say, okay, should we try this? I wonder what will happen if we do this. I wonder if you want to take this on, and giving them all these wonderful opportunities to take on big projects that seemed impossible. To the average person, you think, no, kids just can't do that.
yeah,
Anyway, what it showed was that actually we really underestimate the capabilities of what kids are capable of because, in my words, they don't have any. There's no limitations in the way that they operate. They think that they'll be on Mars by the time they're 15.
yeah,
And I love that. I love those
yeah,
aspirational dreams. I think they're amazing. We should cultivate those. Anyway, so in the middle of COVID, what happened was I was teaching, a class in Sydney using Zoom, and by that time I had about 50,000 followers on LinkedIn, and a lot of India was closed. No one could go to school, so I just started putting the links to my lessons in my school online
yeah,
and saying, if you can't go to school, come to this class.
yeah.
And literally thousands were coming, tens of thousands.
Wow, wow,
Tens of thousands were turning up to lessons on, pollination or, the importance of snails and all this stuff. And so as me and Richard continued our conversations all the time, I said, like, there's something here. We can do something here. Like the whole world is accessible.
Yeah.
Like COVID changed the way we thought about how, QR codes and using Zoom. Like now we're using Zoom. We would never have thought of that before. And so we opened this platform where kids could come to school for free. And we started to do the remote teaching. Now, what happened was it very quickly got out of hand in terms of the numbers. So the intention at the beginning was just to teach online like this and have a couple of thousand kids in class, but now we've got hundreds of thousands, and so that wasn't possible anymore. And so what we pivoted and what we started to do was we'd pre-record courses. We'd give students a chance to do really outrageous, outlandish projects that they chose. We didn't choose. We just gave them the inspiration, and then they would take it on their own steam and then run with it. And then we hoped that amazing things around the world would start to happen, because kids, when you give them freedom and choice, they start to do wonderful and whimsical things that we could never dream of. And 2.5 years later down the track, I have about 200 courses. We've traveled to Antarctica, we've been to the Arctic, we've climbed Everest, we've been to Costa Rica, all these amazing places with a film crew to record classes that then are the inspiration to courses where children get to choose and do amazing stuff. And I'll just give you one example. And it's totally free. So your kids come to school and they don't have to pay. It's just like amazing. One example, which is just always blows me away, although there's a million stories I could tell you, was a school in India they took one of our courses, and the course inspired them to look at SDG 13. And the course is based on trees, the power of trees and how they communicate. And as the inspiration, we went to the biggest tree in the world, which is actually in Bangalore. It has the surface area of 2 Olympic swimming pools, this tree.
Wow.
Outside the shade of the tree, it's 46 degrees. Underneath the shade, it's 22 degrees. It's just unbelievable. And the tree was planted when the Ottoman Empire were in power. That's how old it is. It's amazing. So we went to the tree, we stood under the tree, and we recorded this amazing content. Then we said to the kids, now, what are you going to do with your new knowledge of trees that's going to help SDG 13 in terms of changing climate change? These kids in Delhi, in Dwarka, they decided they'd never seen a bird in their school grounds, right? Never. So, as the way that kids do, they decided they wanted to plant a forest. Now, you can't just go planting a forest. So the course inspires them to think big and gives them all these tools. So they wrote 500 letters, 500 kids, to a local minister, who then gifted them some land right outside their school, half an acre. But, they still didn't have a forest. So then they realized the power of their writing. So they wrote 500 more letters to a local diamond dealer who was a billionaire, who gave them $40,000, enough to buy 25,000 saplings. And then they decided to plant their own forest with the aim of attracting their first bird. Now, principal calls me up out of the blue. I get this phone call. By the way, this has happened in my school. I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. He said, we'd love you to come to school and plant the first sapling. I said, well, look, I'm not a rich guy, so I can't just fly around the planet all the time. But it just so happened that the date of their inauguration was a time when I was flying to the UK to visit my mum. So I stopped off and I went to plant the first sapling, and it was an amazing experience.
Wow.
But to finish the story, I asked one of the children, who was about 13, I said, how will you know when this project is a success? And she said, I'll never forget it till the day I die. She said, when the first bird arrives, we have succeeded. And she pointed up to one of the school windows. She said, look up there. And there was a boy in the window with a pair of binoculars. And she said, we've already started our bird watching club. And the first sapling hadn't even been planted yet. So, like this, if you think about all the work they did to get that over the line, it's all in the curriculum, but now it's got purpose behind it. It's got a reason. It's got a real reason. Anyway, now it's been 1.5 years since that happened. So the forest is growing strong, and the insects and birds have all come, and the kids are learning under the shade of their own trees that they planted. So, the idea is we empower kids to realize their true power, their true potential. And, hopefully then when they go out into the world as adults and they become these really forthcoming, amazing students who become people who do things for the right reasons and realize that they don't have to accept what's already out there. They can change the world. And so, that's what it's all about. And it's literally going crazy. We've got schools. We've got the 5 biggest schools on the entire planet all come to Upschool, and they are very big. the biggest one being Beacon House in Pakistan with 315,000 kids in
What?
one school. Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go. I mean, there's lots of things that it does, and you can always just jump on the site and have a look around. But yeah, it's fantastic. It's really good work. I love to do it. So
Oh wow, that is fantastic. And you know what? I completely agree with you because I wrote the book Magnificent Kids, and
ah,
in 2014 with the exact mindset that kids don't have a lid on their jar. Kids can come up with all these things, and so there's the book's about 23 young people around the world who started off, world-changing projects. Just
wow,
amazing,
I
amazing
love
stuff.
this
And
stuff.
yeah, I mean, that wasn't, I didn't inspire them to write the story, to make their projects. I just gathered these kids that were doing great things. And I completely believe in that, that we put the lids on their jars, and tell them.
We do.
And I love Margaret Mead, and I quote her often: teach kids how to
Yeah,
think, not what to think.
of course.
It's such a powerful thing. I absolutely love that. I want to come back. I want to question this, not question you, but I'm so curious. When you said that, we want to find out what makes kids want to run to school and then not want to leave at the end of the day. What is that? What is that?
That does that.
Yeah,
Okay, so I mean, I'm writing a book. I've got a book deal with Simon and Schuster at the moment. I'm writing a book called Raising Resilient Children. It comes out next year.
yeah,
So I've been spending a lot of time with some of the world's greatest neuroscientists, like Professor Mark Williams from Australia. Amazing guy, and I've been trying to distill this down. What is that? But I've been a teacher a long time. I've worked in Montessori schools, and you often see that in Montessori classrooms a lot. And I guess, I'm not the person to tell you the right or wrong answer. I can only tell you what I've seen and what I think.
Yeah.
So, what often happens in schools around the world, and, there's many schools that don't do this, is that children come to school in the morning and the parents drop them off and push them into school. Say, off you go, guys, have a lovely day. That's where you get educated.
Yeah.
And I'll pick you up at 3:30 when education finishes. And then we'll go home and we'll do some other stuff. And, you'll do your homework and then it's time for dinner and go to bed. And we'll just repeat every single day.
Yeah.
And, that might sound a little bit boring and stagnated, but the reality is I've been to a lot of schools and I've been to a lot of diverse types. And regardless of what it says on the website with future focused or project based, when you walk in the classroom, unfortunately, you kind of see that as a repeated methodology over and over again. It's not a criticism, it's just an observation.
Yeah.
Now, when you hear that, it doesn't sound to me like that's going to inspire any children or any teachers in actual fact. And you've got a mass resignation of teachers around the world now. They want to leave the profession. And in my eyes, I'm a senior lecturer at Notre Dame University. In my eyes, what happened is people sign up to teaching to become teachers because they want to change the world.
Yeah.
You're not doing it for the money and you're not doing it for the holidays. You might think you are, but all the flights are overpriced anyway. And when you get on holiday, all the kids you teach are actually on holiday with you. You're not doing it for that. You're actually doing it because you want to make an impact on the world.
Yeah.
But the system that we're in at the moment is one that actually doesn't allow that to happen, because what happens is this around the planet, the PISA ranking, which is the global education ranking scale, which ranks countries against each other, says that these are the top schools. Yeah. And how do they get that data? Because the schools within those countries sit standardized tests.
Yep.
And they don't sit those tests to have a look to see what the school can do better, what the teachers can get training on. They do those tests to show this is how good our school is. Look what position we're in. Yep. Now enroll your kids here, pay the fees, come into the school, and we will grow. And it's all about that.
Yep.
It's all about growth instead of progress. And unfortunately, the growth of schools competing with each other, it distills and filters down into the classroom. So you get kids sitting tests because they've got to do their duty towards the school so they can say we're top of the pile and come to this school. Yep. Now, what that means is that teachers have to teach to that test because they've got to make sure they get it across the line because there's a benchmark to achieve here. Now, the problem with that system is that teachers don't get to be unique. They don't get to teach what they want to teach. They don't get to bring their own passion, their own pizzazz, their own history, their own culture, their own values, all those things into the room and be the teacher they wanted to be when they graduated from university. So it kind of gets drummed out of them. And in a sense, when the students are sitting in the class, they can see that. Regardless of what you say, They can see it in the way you move, your body language, your voice, your intonation, your tone, the way you move around the room, and they lose that passion too. I think what makes kids run to school and not want to leave is giving teachers freedom, in actual fact. Because when you give teachers freedom and trust, that freedom and trust filters through into the children. And instead of the teacher saying, we now have to do this, she doesn't say this, but in her mind or his mind, we now have to do this because I have to get you across the line with that test at the end of the month to give you the results. The principal who gives it to the so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Instead of doing that, the teacher goes, hey, we're going to learn about vertebrae. Okay. Now, my favorite vertebrae is actually this one, because when I was in Costa Rica, I saw a sloth. Here's a picture of me with the sloth. And the kid's like, whoa, are you saying that my teacher is a real human, doesn't live in the cupboard? That's right. You are saying that. So the kids can feel that passion. And then the teacher says, well, look, now that I've got you inspired by my experience, you can choose any vertebrae you like. There's literally hundreds of thousands of them, some of them extinct. You can choose any one you want. And I'm going to let you do your own research now, and you can choose. And I'm going to let you, represent your research in a way that suits you. I'm not going to tell you to do a report or a piece of art, or I'm going to let you decide how you're going to represent it. And then you're going to show the rest of the class, maybe at the end of the week, or, in 2 hours time, or whenever it is. And you're going to teach us, because we've got a lot to learn from each other. We call this, this circular learning, this holistic approach to education. It's not top down, it's not teacher heavy, it's not teacher focused, it's student focused. Then when you get that in play, students feel trusted, they feel that they have ownership over their destiny, and they feel they have choice. All those things inspire you to want to continue on the journey. Anyone working in industries, executives, if you give freedom and choice to your team, they will come back for more because they feel like they have ownership. And I think that's what's missing right now around the world. It's not a criticism of anyone. It's a criticism of a system that needs to change. When we change that, we'll change the mindset of our children. And I've literally seen it with my own eyes. They just don't want to leave. They want to stay. And, at the school I ran, we didn't have homework. The homework wasn't a thing. And it wasn't that I didn't want kids to work at home. It's because what happened was the kids just wanted to continue their work at home. They were like, by the way, when the mums or dad says, what happened at school today? We're doing this work on snails. I really got to get home because I want to continue it. And therefore the community's engaged, the parents are more engaged. It's just that shift of mindset just around trust, I think, would pivot the entire industry and change the whole thing. And so I think that's it, but maybe there's more to it than that.
Wow. No, but I love that, because I just spoke at a teachers' conference on Friday, and they asked me, what can we do to keep our kids and inspire kids? And I just love what you said, because what I said was, give them ownership. They have to have ownership, and you have to show you care about them. You have to show them you love them. Find something about every kid that you love and show it.
That's right.
And just hearing you say it, but because then that was a keynote. Then I did a presentation, and one of the teachers said to me, we sit in class and we try to teach, the kids won't engage, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you've got to build a psychologically safe environment anyway. Like, that has to be there. They have to feel safe and loved and cared for. And I went home, this is secondary school, but I went home really disheartened. I was on the train and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I just thought, what's happened? What's happened to all these schools? I don't believe so much in mainstream schooling. I think it's I love what you're saying, way better, I think, if we just have that freedom. And it just broke my heart, that there's so many teachers that, as you say, and I just did this with my leadership, actually not even with leadership, with a whole bunch of educators from TAFE the same week, last week, 250 of them, and asked the same question: what was your vision when you first started? What was that vision? And they've lost it. They lose it because of systems.
That's the thing. And like the societal pressure that you find on keeping up with the Joneses, this whole thing of, I've done all this research for the book about the brain and how the brain likes to learn. And this is really interesting, right? Because human brain is designed to learn in a certain way. Right, it is, and unfortunately, the thing that you find is you just can't argue with neuroscience. You just can't.
Yeah.
The brain is in control, and your stomach, of course. They work hand in hand. If anyone's read the book Gut, if you haven't read the book Gut, read it. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But you know that, like the brain is designed to learn in a certain way.
Yeah.
It seems to me in my research that we are teaching the polar opposite and living the lives in our houses, the polar opposite of what the brain actually enjoys. So it's things like this, when you look at the impact that organs in a human body have on cognitive retention, the hands are your biggest player. What the hand touches, the brain will remember, right? So if you touch it, basically, you've got 5,000 tiny receptors on each fingertip, right?
Yeah,
so if you touch it, you've got a direct line to the brain. Number two, if you if there's an emotion attached to what you have just learned, then your brain will lock it away in the hippocampus, guaranteed. So what happens is children come to school, and the teacher and the school, they have these rules, and the rules are quite enforced because we've got some bad behavior and this, that, and the other. And it's usually because of lack of connection, in actual fact, because it's in the door, out the door. It's not in the door. By the way, Tommy, how was your football match last night? Hey, how are you going, Susan? How's your pet guinea pig? I heard it was sick. And it's not criticism of the teachers. They just don't have time because no one trusts them. Do these things, say this stuff, get the kids out, get them in. And teachers don't want to do that. They want to connect. They want to show they care. When children are heard, when they have a voice, they feel like they are loved. You don't need to give them a hug. You just need to feel that you just need to let them know and acknowledge they exist. But anyway, when children go to bed at nighttime, it's really interesting. It happens to all of us, but more so to children under 13. There's something called synaptic pruning. And it's just, if you've never heard of it, it's phenomenal. So you'll have about 5,000 to 7,000 thoughts a day, right? The average person. You might think you have more, but you don't. You go to bed, and all these thoughts are stored in your short-term memory, right? For the day. You go to bed, you close your eyes, and you fall asleep. And the brain's like, all right, she's asleep. Let's sort out everything that she's thought about today and everything she's done and decide what we're going to keep and what we're going to get in the garbage bin. Because you can't keep everything. Your brain actually has about 2.5 petabytes of storage, which is enough to store 400 years of 4K footage, but it doesn't realize it's got so much storage space. So it has to do this filing every single night. So it does this thing called synaptic pruning, where when you fall asleep, it decides what to keep and what to throw away. Now, anything that you've touched, anything that you've felt, right, as in an emotional feeling, your brain will go, you know what, I better keep that stuff, because things attached to emotions help me protect myself later on, keep me alive. Things I've touched, I better keep them too, because I use my hands all the time. I'll need to know if a flame's hot, if a dog's soft, if that's safe. These are the things that you reach out with like this. So it usually puts them in the hippocampus and keeps them. Things that have just been said, just words, the brain goes, you know what? It's very easy to hear words all the time. Just prune it. And just like a pair of secateurs on a bush, just goes chop, 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 prunes them all, dissolves them. They move out of the body using your lymphatic system and they're gone. So you go to school the next day and the teacher says, so guys, does everyone remember what we talked about yesterday when I was talking at you for 1 hour about mushrooms? And the kids go, nah, sorry, I don't remember anything you said. It's not their fault. It's because you didn't let them touch. You didn't let them move. You didn't let them choose. When you choose, there's risk. When there's risk, there's an emotion attached. When there's an emotion attached, fail or succeed. The brain puts it in the hippocampus and you remember it. So when you think about lots of mainstream schooling settings and sitting in rows, in silence, kind of go to the toilet, put your hand up if you need to go to the toilet, all this kind of stuff, we're actually limiting their ability to retain this knowledge and engage with the stuff we want to teach. So if we want to pivot, it's very simple. You look at something called homunculus, which is a model of a child with all of the organs enlarged to show you their cognitive ability to retain knowledge. And then you make children touch, you allow them to talk, you get them to move, you get them to take risks, and you get them to make choices. And bingo, you literally improve the education system overnight. And that goes in our homes and our schools. The same thing. As you said, we go for low-hanging fruit. We say, do this thing because it's safe and you'll all succeed and there's no risk of failure. And we don't want that. We actually want failure. We want to encourage that.
I love it. I always say, as a TAFE teacher, I always used to say, I can talk and they'll remember it for 10 minutes. If I make them feel it, they'll remember it for a lifetime. So I love this stuff. I love this. I absolutely love this stuff. Tell me, you said Montessori. What's the difference between Montessori and Steiner? Because they both sort of um, people put them in the same basket, in
They
the
do.
same
I mean, there
category.
are alternate education systems, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many of them now, like Waldorf and whatnot.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yes, I don't look. I can't give you the full difference because I'm not a Steiner expert. Although I do
yeah,
know some Steiner schools and lots of Steiner teachers. They're similar in the sense there's lots of freedom and lots of choice. But my understanding of Steiner is it's very arts based. It's very, very creative.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas Montessori, on the other hand, is focused predominantly on touch. So it's all tactile learning
Yeah,
materials all the way through to adulthood. In fact, you've got some old age pensioners now engaging and trying to beat dementia and whatnot using Montessori
Oh,
materials, and it's seeing
wow.
it's working. So it's fantastic.
Wow.
But yes, Montessori is all about independence, and the focus is on the tactile learning
Yeah.
experience. But yeah, I'm not sure of the nuances and differences there. There's lots of similarities too, but yeah, they're
Mm,
definitely not the same. Let's make sure that
mm,
we're clear about that.
yeah. Oh, but I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. You why did you were talking about your multiple countries. Why did you go to all these multiple countries? Like, well, what was it that why did if you were already a teacher, like because a
Yeah.
lot of teachers just sit. What made you go, I want to teach everywhere I possibly can?
Okay, well, maybe it wasn't about teaching everywhere I could at the beginning. I mean, I'm settled in Australia and I love Australia, but I do a lot of traveling now. Like,
Yeah.
my carbon footprint is a shocker for the last 2 years, and I apologize to the world for really apologize, but I'm trying to offset it with doing some good work with children. Look, when I was young, I grew up in Yorkshire in England, and bless my mum, she was a single mum for a long time until she met my stepfather, who was a great guy and looked after me for my whole life. But it was a really shocking upbringing in terms of where we were. Like, we were living on the largest council estate in Europe, and we didn't have much money, and I didn't enjoy it. I was bullied at school for being poor, and I was really skinny, and I remember
Mm,
like having all of this bullying coming my way. And I just sat in my mind thinking, I just got to get out of here. I've got to get
mm,
away from this place, like as soon as I can get out of here.
yeah.
And so what happened was, and writing the book recently, I've had a lot of reflection about why am I this person? Why do I care so much when I'm a teacher? Why do I put all the time in? Why do I make sure I connect with the kids? And so I went into this deep reflective state for a long time before I could, you've written a book before, so you're sitting at a blank page and it's got to be 90,000 words. And you're like, okay, it's flashing cursor. And you're like, what is the first word I'm going to type here? Like, do I type the once upon a time? How am I going to start this thing? When you get going, it's amazing. It just comes out of you. But in that reflective state at the very beginning, I remembered something which I realized has shaped my whole life now. And when I was in school, I was 16. I was failing dismally at school. I was doing my A levels, and I was predicted to get an F, two E's, and a D. And that's a
Mm,
shocker. And it
mm,
wasn't because I'm stupid. It wasn't because I didn't have a brain, or I couldn't engage with knowledge. I was just struggling to stay afloat emotionally. Like,
yeah.
I was trying to fit in where I didn't fit in. I was trying to take care of my little brothers, and there was lots of other little things happening in my life. And studying was the last thing on the table. But we did a survey in school, and the survey was, what would you want to do when you're older? What's your job
Mm,
prospects? And I wanted to be a teacher because I'd worked in a local youth club,
yeah.
volunteering, and I loved working with the kids. I felt this kind of like I was giving something back. I felt this responsibility. And it was in a geography class. I don't remember this 6 months ago, but I was in a geography class and I was leaving, and my teacher, Mr. McKenney, he called me back and said, Gavin, can you stay behind? And I thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble here. And he said, and I didn't do much, so I was never really in trouble, but he said, I've seen you've put a teacher down on your list of jobs. I said, yeah, I'd like to be a teacher. He goes, let me just be clear, you've got zero chance of being a teacher.
Oh,
You're not going to get the grades to get in. Like, no teacher college is going to accept you with those grades. He said, but I know you like geography, and I can see there's a spark in your eye in the classroom when we're talking about truncated spurs and volcanoes and lava. And I'm like, yeah, you've obviously noticed me. I appreciate that. Immediately felt loved. That
yeah.
someone noticed I existed and could see the, my emotion in my face. But he said this. He said, look, if you get a C in geography, there's a good chance you might get into teaching college on the back of a C, because very few males going into teaching. So I said, okay, well, what do I do? And he said, well, I tell you what, why don't you do what I say for the next 6 weeks? I'll give you a little project to do every night. You go home, spend an hour doing it, and I reckon you can get a C.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And, I didn't really have the cognitive load to do this. I was too busy trying to survive. But I went home and I did it every night. I did what he said. He gave me diagrams of rivers and diagrams of V-shaped valleys and U-shaped valleys and glaciers and all this stuff. And I did them all. When it came to the exams, and I got 2 E's, a D, and a C, the golden C. And I went to my university to the open day, and I got in to be a teacher, and I became a teacher. And and that moment I was very proud. And suddenly I was a teacher. Someone was going to teach other people, and I got to leave my town and go to a new town. And then I became a teacher. And then the world just opened. I just saw the whole world as a place. Now you're a teacher, you speak English, half the world speaks English. Let's get out of here. And then off I went. There was no stopping me. I went to live in Spain. I lived in France. I went traveling all over the place. I got the Trans-Siberian Express. I ended up in China. I ended up in South Korea, Japan. I ended up in Australia. And then since then I've been everywhere. I've been to so many places. But it's just, the world is a small place, and I want to see most of it before it gets dark. And so I'd like to, and you bring all of that into your classroom too. So that was really it. And in the book that I've written, basically dedicating it to this man, and he doesn't know, he won't remember that he did that. But I hope when he reads the opening, the preface, that he's like, oh my God, did I do that? And I was like, you sure did. Well, thank you, sir.
I love that. I thought it was going to go the other way. It's that was another thing. Someone asked me at the conference, is who was your favorite teacher? Who had an impact? And it was Mrs. Forbes in grade 2, because she saw me. It makes a massive difference when teachers care.
Yeah. Well, I think teachers, they do care. You don't go to teaching not caring, obviously, but you just don't have time to care. That's the problem. They've got this thing called I wrote about in this book, this thing called the 30-second rule. And I think you've got 30 seconds when a kid walks in the door to acknowledge them.
Yep.
Right. It doesn't have to be a go over and talk about the whole night. It can be a fist bump. It can be a thumbs up. It can be a wink. It can be a punch in the air. It can be a, hey, tell me how's your guinea pig going? Doesn't matter what it is. Just to say, I've seen you, and I'm here. Oh, good. And then the more that you can connect on a personal level during the day, then just the stronger that bond becomes. Because it's interesting. At home, you have unconditional love, right? So regardless of what you do at home, you're always going to, regardless of what the child does in the house, it's just love. You're grounded. You go to your room. You're being a naughty little monkey. I still love you unconditionally. But at school, it's different. There are rules, and they're hard rules. When you break them, these are the consequences. You go to the principal, or you get expelled or suspended, or whatever those things are, whatever the school rules are. So children, there's a lot of anxiety in school because it's a different ball game. When you cross the threshold of outside is unconditional love, inside, well, there's still some care, but now the rules are harder. That's what we have to make sure, that we make that connection with the kids, so that they're like, oh, I know you really care about me still, but I also know the boundaries.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. How do we get from, though, if we do that as primary teachers, and then they go to secondary where there's a bit more pressure on, is what's more dangerous? The teachers, if a kid felt really connected with and seen at primary school, and then they go to secondary and there's not that, is that more dangerous than, or the alternative I'm thinking of is, I wasn't seen at primary school and I'm not expecting to be seen at secondary?
That second part just sounds so awful. I know. Listening to your words, it sounds terrible. At Upschool, we've just done one of the largest research projects on the planet on levels of hope. So we got 50,000 children in India from one school, and we engaged them with a pre and post survey. And in the middle of that, we did an Upschool course based on empowerment through the SDGs, and basically the children take on real world projects. And the idea was, the hypothesis is that when children get to play a part in changing the world, their hope for the future increases because they see the problems. You know, if you think about the world now and you look at it from a news perspective, it looks terrible if you're a kid. You know, and you're in school or in the home, and you say to your children, by the way, guys, you're going out there into that wonderful world. They go, oh my God, I don't want to go there. Like, sounds terrible. I want to stay here. It's lovely and safe here. What about, you know, you've got interest rates and the global crisis with war, and you've got the famine and floods, and it's all heating up, and the oceans are getting acidic, and all the animals are dying. There's forest fires everywhere. Sounds awful. Right. But it's not actually that awful out there when you get there, but it sounds awful. What I want to do is test their levels of hope. Now, the data is still being analyzed, but one thing we have seen is that when children get to high school, there's a real shift in their levels of hope when they hit year 7. So when you hit year 7, and you can understand this because if you're a high school child, suddenly things change in terms of the information you receive. It's more abrupt now. You're going to get the actual facts and figures now. You're not going to be like, hey guys, you know, we're in primary school, and what are we having for snack today, and who's playing with who on the playground. Now it's like, by the way, here's some statistics around global famine. And so, you know, it's more like that. But I think what we need to do 100% is make sure that connection is something that runs through the whole of school, because when they're connected, when they feel loved, and when they feel that they have a safe haven to go to. And, you know, kids spend most of their life in either school or home. So why should there be unconditional love in one and not on the other? So that level of connection needs to happen in both. And I think you know, when you have a school that has, let's call it a constitution, where they have values, and I don't just mean words on the wall. Well, these are our values. When those values are lived and breathed, and the children embody them, and they decide what they are. They're not dictated by the executive team. These are our values, by the way, guys. No, the children say, who, you know, you say to the kids, who do we want to be? You know, when people talk about Pinkerton Primary School, what do we want them to say? And then the children say, well, we want them to say that we're kind. And you say, well, okay, that sounds good. So what do we have to do as a community so that people say, by the way, you know, kids at Pinkerton, really kind. You know, you don't have a rule on the wall that says be kind. You don't have a rule. You have a phrase that's that, you know, we always care for all living things, for example. And then the children go, well, that's who we are. That's what we do. We decided what these things were. We decide on what they are. So when you have that, you have like you know, a level playing field in your school where everybody is that. And therefore you have this level of connection all the time, because children are empowered to be able to make those choices. And then teachers feel that, well, if I'm kind to everyone, as our kids are, I'm kind to all the kids too. And my principal's kind to me, or trust might be another one, you know, like, so I think it goes all the way down to ownership once again, but that level of care and love and having that voice, I think it needs to run through the whole of school from the very beginning, all the way to the day you leave. Then, you know, you'll have citizens. You can't judge schools now on the results they get today. You have to judge them. And this is where we need to change our mind, shift our mindset. You judge them on the citizens that walk on the street in 20 years' time, because that's what you're going to get. So once we start thinking long term, we'll change what education is for everyone.
I love it. You know, you've inspired me so much, because, you know, we all have self-doubt. You know, we all kind of like, oh God, am I on the right page? You know, am I thinking this right? But all those things I've said, and then you've just matched them. And the other thing I said to my partner was, I came home talking about this conference and about the kids, and I said, you know what I think it is? It's lack of hope. It's hope is the underpinning word here, because they've got no hope for the future. Because everything they read on TikTok is, you know, like we're devastated, we're this and that, the climate change, and it's just too big. And it's kind of like, I'll never have my own house. I can't afford to rent. I can't move out, you know, so they've got no hope for tomorrow, because I kept saying it's short term. They're only looking at today. And then I went, I know what it is. It's hope. They've got no hope for the future. Absolutely none. Yes.
Can we just go back on that for a second? I think that's a really important thing to say as well, is that, you know, the way that the education system is geared up is about It looks a bit like this. It's like, if you get these grades, you go to this university. And if you go to that university, you'll get this job. And if you get that job, you'll get this salary. And if you work hard in your job, then you'll get a promotion and you might even become a partner. And then you'll get some shares and some stocks. Then you'll be rich. Then you can buy a Maserati and a house at White Bay, and then maybe a yacht. And then you can cruise around like these guys on TikTok. And then you'll be happy at that point. Now, at that point, you're not happy. Go to have a look at Mr. Packer. Right. If you want to see what if money makes you happy, right? He clearly is outspoken about how unhappy he is, even though he's one of the richest people in the country. And many people around the world obviously feel the same thing. What needs to happen in my mind is that whole mindset around, if I keep climbing the hierarchy, happiness is at the end of the rainbow. You're 65 by then. You haven't done anything, and you're like, oh, I haven't done anything. What did I do with 65 years? Now I've got arthritis in my right knee. I can't go hiking, all this stuff. What needs to happen is, in our schools, when we give them that choice and that freedom and that agency, they then, especially that bit where we say, you can represent your research in a way that suits you. Don't worry about, there's no textbooks. There's no worksheets. You decide how you want to show me about snails. I'll still be able to tick it off in the curriculum. Tick. Tommy learned about snails. Sarah learned about snails, right? It doesn't matter how you show me your research, as long as you prove to us that you know about snails. Now, when they go away and choose, what they do when you observe them is they show you their passion, their niche. Little Tommy, he's going to be a dancer when he's older. He doesn't know it yet, but he'll come back every time you give him freedom with a dance routine. Stephanie, she wants to be a writer when she's older. She has no idea yet. She's inherited from her grandma, or whatever it is that happened to her. She comes back every time with a report, and you've got Arthur. He comes back with a painting every time. He wants to be the next Picasso. Now, when we give them this standardized textbook, page 62, read the paragraph, color in the diagram, tick the boxes, we don't allow them to find their passion early enough. And so if you find the passion early, then you come out of school and you go into A-levels and kids are like, what do I choose? Mum, which one? You know what you're choosing. You're like, you've been doing 15 years already, where you know what makes you tick, what you would get out of bed for every single day if money was not even a thing. And therefore, you choose a profession not based around money or climbing the hierarchy, based around living your best life and doing the thing that you want to do most, because you don't have time to waste. Time waits for no person. You can't wait till 65 to then, when I'm 65, I'm going to do these things. That's too late. I'm so sorry about that. And so to have that purposeful life, that existence that means something, I think we've got to start a lot earlier.
I do too. I love this. Love this. Tell me about Nepal. Like, you've built 9 was it 9? Yeah, 9 schools, several libraries, and run 3 teacher training centers. Is that all in Nepal? Like, the 9 schools are in Nepal?
Yeah, they're all in Nepal, those ones.
Why Nepal, and how did you get started? And, what's the story with all that?
Yeah, well, I'm a climber, so I climb mountains. I love that's my passion project in the background. I love to go hiking and climbing. I've climbed some really nice ones. I went to base camp actually about 9 months ago, which was very cool and love. Wow. And we recorded lessons all the way up on Sherpa people teaching about
fantastic,
which was very cool. But yes, so in 2018, I was finishing my Montessori diploma, and you do pracs. When you're doing a teaching degree, you do practice. And so I went to my principal at the time, Dr. Bill McKeith, and if he's listening, then he's been a huge influence on my life, amazing guy. And I said, I want to do something outlandish. I want to do my final prac in Nepal. He's like, what do you mean? Can't you just go to West Pennant Hills? I said, no. I want to go to Nepal. And I pitched it to him, and he said, all right, go for it. I love this idea, go. So I went to Nepal, and I was doing the last practicum in a training center there, to try to do some work there with the community. And when I was there, I met a guy who was running this teacher training center, and it was really just nondescript. Nothing was really happening in there. There was just nothing. And I worked with him for about a month doing my prac, but also helping them out and training all these teachers, and it was really fun. One weekend, he took me down to his village, Nolparasi, which is down on the Indian border. And for your listeners, just to describe it, it's like, imagine a time gone by, like hundreds of, if not thousands of years ago, a buffalo in every garden, a couple of goats, just paddy fields as far as the eye can see. No one really has any money. They exchange all their goods. There's a local little shop that sells a couple of little things, but nothing really. And it's just this beautiful place where everyone has got all the time in the world that you could dream of. Wow. In the morning, father gets up at 4 a.m, milks a buffalo. The kids come out into the garden. There's breakfast in the garden where they eat some, curd and some milk and some bread. And the house is made of cow dung. And we all stand around, and it's beautiful. The mist rises, and the South Himalayan sun comes up. And then the mum combs their daughter's hair for 20, 40 minutes, saying, "I love you so much," kissing them endlessly. They get a little, not a ladle, I don't know what the word is, but the metal container of milk, and they head off down the market. Kids sell them the milk at the market and then pay for school. And come home later, mum's waiting, embracing their daughter, and "I love you. How was school?" It's just heaven, right? I'm not religious, but it's just like, it's everything you want, and they want everything we want. It's like chasing the tails of each other. Anyway, it's gorgeous. So I went down there, and he took me down there to meet his community and his family, and it was really gorgeous. And he took me to a local preschool, and I walked in, and there was just a lady on the floor, sitting on the floor with kind of a green mat, 30 kids, not one table, no chairs, no materials, just she had one pen and a pad of paper. That was it. And on the wall, there was an A to Z. It was all kind of brown and scrumpled up and rolled up. And that was it. That was a school, right? Wow. And all these kids without shoes on. And I went in and I looked around, and I thought, it looked like a prison cell. It looked awful. Aww. And I talked to her, and then was Padma. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" She said, "I'm a teacher." And I said, "Well, how do you teach with, you have nothing? There's nothing in here." She said, "It's very hard. I try my best, but, it's just the way it is." And then I made this, I just felt this, I don't know why I said it or why it came out of my mouth. I said, "You know what? I'm going to fix this place up for you." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm going to come back and I'm going to fix it up for you." And I'm not rich. I don't have money or anything like this. And so I didn't really know what I was saying. But I was working in a school. So I came back to school. I took some pictures, came back, and I got all the kids sat down. I'm working in a Montessori school. So I said to the kids, "You know what? I need your help." And they were like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Look, I want to show you a classroom that's 10,000 Ks away. Here it is." And so the kids were like, "Well, I've got some stuff at home that I could donate." I said, "Well, what are you bringing in tomorrow?" So these two children came in, and one came in with a pack of coloring pencils. Another one came in with some board games and a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. And they had a suitcase, and they put them on the corridor outside. And so other kids started to walk by and say, "What's that suitcase?" I said, "Well, since I showed you those pictures, some children have always started making a collection." Anyway, just like wildfire took off, and I had 20 suitcases filled with stuff like 2 weeks later. Everything you can dream of. Everything. Every kid emptied their house. Some kids wanted to give the shoes they walked to school in. I said, "No, you need those shoes." They just wanted to give. And I spoke to Mark Williams about this, and kids are just natural empaths. Yeah. The empathy is drilled out of them, unfortunately, by society. They're empaths. So they want to give, and they want to make people happy. Anyway, so I took this suitcase and I flew back to Nepal without the kids. And I renovated her school in a weekend. I painted all the walls with the help of some local people, and I decked it all out, and then invited all the kids in, and they were like, "Oh my goodness me." And that Padma, she was crying so much. She made us all cry. It was gorgeous. And I came back to school, and I said to the kids, "Look what you've done. Look what you have done." And they were crying too. The parents were over the moon, and they just got addicted. They wouldn't stop. They're like, "Gavin, can you find another school?" I said, "Sure can." So, I went back to Nepal, and another school appeared, and then we were renovating schools at that point. Then we got to building schools because parents were like, "Well, let's raise some money now." So I started running marathons and raising money. And then we had cash and resources. So I'd fly there to empty fields where there's no school, and we'd build an entire school from the ground up. And then, the kids in the school were just so entrenched in who we were as a school that's what we did. We just built schools in the Himalayas. And then, we needed teachers for those schools. So then we started opening teacher training centers, and I started getting old banks that I found, and I turned them into teacher training centers, and I started to train local people, put them in charge, and they run their own teacher training centers. Now all these schools belong to the government, so they don't belong to me, but they're on government land for the community. We train the teachers continuously, and we've got these 3 teacher training centers, which, I must be transparent, they do make profit, but not for me, for the people who run them. They've changed their lives. They've got houses, and but they've run these places. Wow. And so it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm so thankful for that. In the last couple of years, I've actually had to turn it down a little bit because I've been running Upschool, and it takes a lot of effort to run a school online for hundreds of thousands of kids. But it's still there as my passion. It's the thing that I would do actually if money wasn't a thing. I would just do that for my whole life. And if you haven't been to the Himalayas before, anybody listening to your podcast, when you see an 8,000 meter mountain, right, for the first time, and it's right there, it blows your socks off. It's not like you've been down to Kosciuszko, you've been to the Alps in the south of France. It is another beast, and it will change your entire life. So
Wow.
yeah, that journey's been amazing for me as a person. I've loved every moment, and I will continue that until the day I die, 100%.
I love that so much. Did you encourage Tiff Cook to go to the Himalayas, did you? Because she's encouraging me.
Yeah, well, I did say that to her. I said, "Hey, if you ever want to come, like, jump on board. Let's all go together." But yeah, she's lovely. I love Tiff. She's
Yeah,
awesome.
she's amazing. Oh wow. Yes. I've been watching her thing and I think I'm gonna do that. I just have to do that. That is just looks magnificent. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
good. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the thing with the world. You see, a lot of children won't get to see a lot of this stuff. So you think
yeah,
about, a child in Nepal, for example, they're landlocked. Their
yeah,
passport's pure garbage. They literally can't go anywhere. So if
yeah.
you think about a Nepalese child, they will probably never ever see the ocean or hear a wave. Never.
Wow.
And we go down the beach and we take it for granted.
Yeah,
They will never see it. But it's in their curriculum to take care of the oceans, right? And they're
yeah.
like, well, you may as well tell me to take care of Jupiter. That's how close it is to me. So it's so abstract. And that's the whole point of Upschool, that we go to these places and literally use the internet to beam it into their schools. So they're like, oh, there's Gavin. Oh, and he's there with a blue whale, or he's there with a killer whale, or he's on Everest, or whatever. And they feel that, one step, the Kevin Bacon thing, they're only one step away rather than seven.
Yeah, yeah.
But just on that quickly, I met a woman in the Himalayas. I was building a school in a place called Kavre, which is up in the foothills of the Himalayas. And there was a lady, I was down by this river basin and it was all dry. And she was pouring this huge plastic bin into this river basin, which was already filled with plastic bottles, Coke and Mountain Dew and all this stuff,
Mm.
and Lay's chips and all this kind of stuff. And I said to her, can I ask you a question? Why do you pour your garbage in this river basin here? And she said, oh, no, don't worry. I know what you're going to say, but don't worry. When the rains come, then all of this just goes away. And I
Oh,
said, do you know where it goes? By the way, I wasn't saying this in a condescending
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
criticizing tone. I was just very conversational and just very open. Do you know where it goes? And she said, oh, no, I've never thought about that. And I said, well, would
Oh,
you like to know where it goes? And she said, oh, I'd love to know. I said, well, when the rains comes, it goes down the river and it ends up in the Ganges. And it goes through the Ganges, ends up in the Saudi Arabian Bay. And it ends up in the Indian Ocean in the end. And then fish eat the plastic. And then you eat the fish and then you eat plastic. And she said this, never forget, I've never tasted a fish and I've never seen the ocean. And then she just turned around and walked off back to her house. So that kind of like, well,
yeah,
you're telling me something there, but
yeah,
that doesn't mean anything to me because that's not in my life.
yeah,
And so we
yeah,
kind of have to bring those things into our children's lives if we
mm,
want them to care about them. If they have a
yeah,
sense of connection
yeah,
to them, then maybe, like if you live down by the beach, if you live at Bondi, you're not going to be throwing your garbage on the beach when you finish
yeah,
because it's your beach.
yeah.
And so we need to give ownership to our children to say,
Mm,
this is your planet. Okay.
mm.
So we all play a part in this. But it's very tricky. It's a tricky situation to
It
be in.
is, yeah. Very, very complex, but we've got to try. We have to try. We've got to keep all of us. Oh well, there's one. I'm going to finish with this. A quote that I saw in your bio. In the ideal in the ideal classroom, love is a silent lesson always being taught. And
Oh, wow.
you don't know that? You didn't know that was on your
I forgot
bio.
writing. I write so much stuff. I just forgot writing it.
That is beautiful. In the ideal classroom, love is a silent lesson always being taught. I absolutely love that.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
love it. So even if you don't remember writing it, you did at some point. It was some magic that came through your through your fingertips. I absolutely love it. Gavin, this has been absolutely magnificent. Like I reckon there's so, I just want to delve into so much more. Like, how did you find the land for the schools? How, there's so much. But I
Right.
want people to go and explore your websites and your stuff and get your books and that kind of stuff. So where can people find you?
Well, the best place to go, I mean, if you're looking for Upschool, of course, just Google Upschool, you find it. It's all over the place. It's everywhere, which is
Yeah,
fantastic. And that's good for any. We've written a curriculum, so it's in line with the Australian curriculum too. So you literally, if any teachers out there, you've literally got nothing to do.
yeah,
Lessons are taught, curriculum's written, all the resources are made. It's just, Bob's your uncle. Just go ahead and get on with it. And if you've got any homeschool parents out there who are trying to do it at home,
yeah,
once again, all the work's done for you, so it's all free. So you don't need
Yeah.
to, actually pay any money at all, which is fantastic. But yeah, look, I'm easy to find. You just have to put my name into Google, and I'm the kind of person that responds to everyone as well. So if you need to get in contact, then I'll always try to get back to you. And I live a simple life, so I don't have a big team or anything. It's just me and my cats in the house, and so I will always try to reply. And if you've got any needs or wants or requirements, then that's usually good for me, because it means that there's something in the community needs to be built, so we can usually make it. But yeah, look, it's easy to find, and yeah, it's really been an honor to be on your podcast. It's been nice to be here. So I've been looking forward to it for a few months now. So thank you for inviting me, and thanks for Tiff for introducing us.
I know, she's a miracle. She's a wonder. But I'm so glad we finally got to do it. Gavin, I have absolutely loved this. You've got my brain. It's firing off in all directions. It's absolutely inspired and excited. And we all have those moments of despair. It's like, oh my God. And then we feel like we've hit a bit of a brick wall. Like, well, I don't know what to do anymore. But you've ignited me up again. You've given me all these little things are going off everywhere. But it's
Wow.
I'm really, really excited, really happy, and I just want to want to look at more of your stuff and explore it more, because I love it. I love what you do. I'm really grateful that you're on this planet. I really am.
Well, I must say, though, before the podcast is over, that I'm just one person in the background. There's a team of us that work diligently all day, all night, all weekend. You can't do these things alone. So, my co-founder, Richard Mills, and Professor Jason Skews down at Swinburne, and Kate Jackson, and Anusha and Ashesh, and all the team all over the place who build all this stuff and put it together. You can't do these things on your own. You need a group of people that can also do them. So I'm really grateful and thankful for those people too. But yeah, let's see. I mean, look, you never know. What's the saying? You might not sit in the shade of the acorn that you plant
Oh
today,
God, I say that all the time.
but somebody will. And that's
I
what you need to have the mindset of, right?
that is the thing I say all the time. I want to plant the tree of the shade of which I will never sit. That is
Yeah.
so bloody important. That is
Yeah, that's
such an
right.
important thing.
Well, these old philosophers, I feel we've lost that a bit. Like I've been reading lots of these philosophical books now of Immanuel Kant and Socrates and Plato and these guys. Such wisdom came out of these people in such concise words. It was all entrapped in there, such meaning. So, yeah, these kind of sayings, they're sayings to live by, but hopefully our legacy will live on further down the track. So anyway, thanks for having me. It's been really nice to be here, and I look forward to seeing your listeners' feedback and whatnot. So yeah, it's been great.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
See ya.